I overheard my fiancée saying to her friends that she is with me only for my money. She called me the perfect rich simp, and how she basically controlled me. All her friends thought it was hysterical and egged her on. My fiancée is 29 and I am 31, and we met in college and remained just casual acquaintances at the time. We both took a couple of the same classes and hung out a few times, stayed in contact, but never too terribly close. We both graduated, and a few years later we reconnected after randomly running into each other after we unknowingly both moved to the same city. It was around that time that my career really took off. A few senior engineers from my company recruited me for a startup they had been working on. We got a few big clients and venture capital funding pretty early on, so within a few years the money really started to roll in. She and I started dating, and honestly, up until now, I've been nothing but happy. Things were going great, and I felt like I was really close to her. I've been nothing but doting and appreciative of her. This all began to shift last week when I overheard her talking to her friends about how she views me. I had planned to work later than usual, but came home early with a stomach ache and went to lie on the bed. I must have fallen asleep for about 2 hours, but when I woke up, I could hear her in the living room with some of her friends while they were drinking. The conversation was pretty casual until they started talking about the wedding and our relationship in general. Through the laughter, she went on to describe how she had landed herself the perfect rich simp, how she basically controlled me, and how I would give her the life she always wanted. I was just a tool for her to use. Her friends thought it was hysterical and egged her on. I know she was drinking, and I know maybe she was joking, but for me, the trust is gone. I don't feel like I can still marry her when I've heard in her own words that she sees me this way. When she later went to the bedroom, she seemed surprised to see me, but she also assumed I'd been asleep. I haven't confronted her yet, and I'm just dreading canceling the wedding, which is scheduled for next April. Opie wrote the post in October. Best comments. You can leave her. I left my fiancée, and it seemed impossible to do at the time, but I did it, and it was absolutely the right choice. If you were to put yourself in her shoes, could you imagine saying such things? That's all you really need to know. Sorry, friend. Just know you did nothing wrong. There are serious character issues with her, though. Issues she has already chosen are all right with her. I think you're totally right to want to cancel everything. When you have lost trust, there isn't really a way back from that. You need to talk to her about it, but there will likely be denials and recriminations, and the inevitable, "I was just joking." But it's not funny. It's not respectful, and she hasn't told you about it as a funny joke she engaged in. I guess you could test it by offering her a prenup. But honestly, how can you trust her words or feelings again? By the way her friends were encouraging her, it sounds like she says this type of thing pretty often. If you don't leave, then you're literally proving her right. Don't be the tool she thinks you are. Get your ducks in a row, housing and logistics wise, money too, and get the F out. So what if the wedding is canceled? Happens all the time, and by March you will be happier. Update number 1, 16 days later. Sorry it took me a couple weeks to post an update, but it's been really hectic. I confronted her a couple of days after my initial post. I wanted to see if she would be honest, if there was even a chance of working this out. So I initially didn't allow her to know I personally overheard her. I told her I heard a rumor that she had been talking about me that way. She pressed me for a name, but after I refused to give her one, she flat out told me repeatedly that I had been lied to, that she would never talk about me that way. I then told her I personally overheard her. Then her entire demeanor changed. I think she hadn't considered that I'd been awake when she had her friends over, or that this was such a common topic of conversation that she didn't know exactly which specific conversation I had heard rumors of. I told her I was calling off the wedding. She then started crying, and I genuinely felt bad. But at the same time, I can't really trust her anymore. She left, and I have no idea where she went, but I got a few calls from her friends later that night and the next morning. They were the same friends I overheard earlier, so I just never answered. Her dad randomly showed up that afternoon and seemed surprised at what I said. She hadn't given him a detailed reason for why I was calling off the wedding, just that she had lost my trust. He didn't have much to say after I told him, but said I should try to work things out. She came back the next day, and I still have no idea where she went, nor do I really care. I was blunt and told her she would need to find a new place somewhat soon. Since then, I've been spending as little time as possible home, and she seems to be gradually removing some of her smaller personal items. It's a mess, and she keeps trying to salvage things, and when that fails, the crying starts. I'm glad I found out sooner rather than later. Best comments. Congratulations on the bullet dodged. I cannot imagine how miserable life with her would have been if you wouldn't have found out about this. She was upset that she was caught, and the lies prove it. I don't know how her father expects you to try and work it out when she has done nothing to prove she is trustworthy to be believed. You need to give her a hard deadline to get herself and all of her stuff out. She is dragging her feet on moving out because she figures if she delays it long enough and cries enough tears, you will give her another chance. Update number 2. 14 days later. My ex and one of her male friends showed up with a U-Haul to get the last of her stuff the weekend after my last post. I didn't trust their chemistry together, but I also didn't really care. I didn't even bother to learn if she has a new lease or if she's staying with him. She thankfully left my ring behind, but I don't know what to even do with it. It cost me $15K retail, but the resale looks like a fraction of the original cost. I also have a lot of work to do to recoup my deposits for the venue, caterer, and planner. Her mom called me the night after she left, but I didn't answer. I honestly didn't want to hear it. I've always had a great relationship with her, but she sounds so much like her daughter that I didn't know if I could take that conversation. I've had a really difficult time emotionally over the last month and a half dealing with this. I've always been a casual drinker, but lately I've been avoiding going home and drinking with old friends far more consistently to avoid having to deal with the fallout. I know it's not healthy, but it's all I could do to not fall apart completely. Some of that spilled over into my work, and I think the other founders noticed. I lead a small development team and do a ton of technical work myself. Because of this, my mistakes are really easy to notice since they largely manifest in infrastructure breakage, CD outages, and downtime in key applications. I don't know how exactly they learned what happened, but after I mentioned I wouldn't be going to see family during Thanksgiving, the CTO sent me a text asking me if I was home, then showing up at the CEO 30 minutes later the night before Thanksgiving. The CTO had apparently learned what happened a few days before, and he, along with his wife, had spent most of the day basically making me a feast. It was incredible. Beef bourguignon, porchetta, potato salad, lasagna, deviled eggs, duck roast, to say the least. The CEO brought an incredibly expensive bottle of whiskey and some high-end Japanese A5 steaks. I was brought to tears. I had never been shown this much love and appreciation in my entire life. I will never forget it. We basically just drank whiskey, ate food, and talked for hours. They gave me the rest of the year off and asked me to just make sure I delegated the most time-sensitive work. I'm not even sure what I'm going to do, but I'm thinking of vacationing in Ireland for a few weeks. Never mind, I have frozen leftovers for weeks.